In this video, I'm going to try to convert a spreadsheet to essentially a very basic JSON API. Now, I have seen some comments that this doesn't work when you try to call from an external service like your website. So I'm going to start by doing a little trial to see if this is even something that we want to pursue, and then we'll go forward from that point on. So I'm going to take this spreadsheet right now. It has some data. Right now, I'm not going to be using this data yet. I will just go to script editor and create a quick project here. So I need some sort of do-get function. And this should return some service. Now let's just create a response for this. That's my JSON object. Maybe we'll put this in an array or something. So let me just look in the docs for a second. So we have HTML. This is going to be content service. So let's go ahead and open that. So content service, basically. We need to do create output and then provide the string content. So this has to be in string format. So what we'll do, we'll just do Json Stringify. So it basically makes a string out of this, and this will now be a string. So we'll pass it to this. So let's just call it something for our variable. So now we'll take that. So what else do we have here? We have set mime type. So let's see. Is there a JSON type? There's JavaScript. Interesting. So let me go back to the docs really quickly. So it seems like JSON is in here, but it wasn't showing up. So maybe we should access that through content service instead of just directly. There it is. That makes more sense. Okay, JSON. Okay, good. So I'm going to set the mime type for this. So I think we could have done that right here. Let's actually just incorporate it here on top instead of doing this separate line. And at this point, let's just return this without actually setting it like that. Just like this, I'm going to just move these to a separate line so it looks nicer. I'm glad I did that. Now I'm going to remove that extra semicolon. Okay, so that's going to be my do-get function. So I'm going to go ahead and publish this as a web app to see if we can actually access that JSON response. So publish, deploy as a web app, and execute as me and anyone. Deploy. That's our URL. So now if I open this, if everything goes well, I should see that JSON response. And I do. So I get the array status cool. This was the step of creating something for us to call. Now the trick here is to see if we can call this from an external service. Because right now I'm just going directly to their page and I'm loading that. Now let's try to call this from a different page. So I'll try a local thing and then I'll also maybe put something on GitHub and try to call it from there to see what happens. So let's start by creating a folder. And I'm going to open this in VS Code. So pretty much just keep it simple. Just create an HTML file and a JavaScript file. And go to my HTML, exclamation tab to get some main content and link to that script file. Let's just do an element here with an ID so we can put something in here after. Hopefully this works. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to try to call that page, get the response, and put it inside of this div with an ID app. So I'll go to this JavaScript and we'll use regular JavaScript fetch API. That would be fetch. And we should be calling that page that we just generated. So I'm going to go back to my app script, get that link, and pretty much just go back here and paste it right in there. Because this is very long, let's actually do this in a different way. Let's just put this in a variable like this, in quotes. And then let's just put URL here, so we can actually read and understand what's actually going on. So we have this variable URL, which is basically a link to that whatever was generated for me, that JSON. Now I'm going to go ahead and fetch, and then after that we should get a response. So initially that should be a JSON response. I'll just take the D and then we'll just convert it to JSON, and then that should be the JSON response at this point. Let me just move these to separate lines so it looks nicer again. And over here, we're going to get whatever we get back. So again, I'll call it D. I'll do some brackets here for me to write some code. So if everything goes well at this point, this D should be the response we get from here. So basically this array with a status cool. So if I go back to this, we should be able to basically just take that D, and that's an array. So if we get to that 0, and inside of that 0, we have that status, which should say cool. So let's just put this inside of that app. So we'll take document, get element by ID, and the ID is app. And we want to make the text content of this equal to that. Now I don't want this to run as soon as I open the page. So let's just go ahead and let's just change this to this new syntax. That's fine. So let's just put it in a function. So that's what I'm going to call this function. I'm simply just going to move all of this code right inside of here. And then I'll create a button, and when we click on it, we'll basically just call this test.js function, or GS, or whatever it is. So I'll go back to this and make a button right here. Let's just assign an event listener to that. So when we click on that button, we would like to run this function that we've just created. Save this. I think that's pretty much it. This should be enough for us to test to see if this works. So if I open this, I'm going to open the live server. And I have my button. I'm going to click that button. And we got cool. So that works. I thought it was not supposed to work, but it works. So far, so good. It will probably, I guess, not work if you don't use like a local server, but go and open the file manually. So if I go and open that folder, see this, try this, and open that HTML file like this, let's see what happens. It still works. I don't know how it doesn't work, but apparently it works fine for me so far. Now, I want to try another thing. I want to put this thing that I just built here, these two files pretty much, on GitHub and try to run it again to see if this works. And if it does, we should be in a good shape, at least for do get. We have to try do post too, but for now, we're going to do this. So I'm going to go to GitHub. So this is going to be a public repository. So I just need to basically upload those files here. So I'm just going to drag these two files over, commit changes. I will change this HTML file and make it index.html, so it's the front page. Okay, so now I'm just going to make this public. So like a website sort of public. So we'll go to settings and make GitHub pages out of it. So we'll take that master branch we just made, and that should convert it to a public page like this. So if I open this, I don't know why that doesn't open. Let's just manually do our link index.html and see if it opens up. It does. So let's just do click me. So that works no matter what. I will have to look up and see why it's not loading that index.html right away, but that kind of doesn't matter here. The main thing here is we're calling Google Sheets and we can use it here. So that's what we wanted to prove here, and so far so good. Now the second thing I want to do, I want to make sure we can write to the spreadsheet. So this was reading from it. Now can we also do a post request to write to the spreadsheet? To do this, I'll go back to my code and create a doPost function. And I haven't used this for ages, but this should receive some sort of event. We'll have to go check what this event has. So let's just open the docs for doPost in app scripts. So this is the content of text of the body. So I think that's what we need. So let's just grab that and try to use it. So that's coming from this E. Let's just save it in some variable. So that will be the body we'll be sending to this. So let's assume we're sending something like an object that says, well, let's not do it on this page. Let's do this on this page, test. And the object will be, let's say, somebody's name, and we'll just add it as a row here, something like that. So we'll just simply basically say name Joe, something like this. So assuming that's what's being sent to us, this is going to be that body. I think that's going to just return text, so we need to convert it to a JSON object now. And by the way, since this body is going to be text and it's going to be JSON, it's basically going to be like this, name Joe. But once we run it through this parse for JSON, we'll have a regular JavaScript object we should be able to work with. So at that point, if I do body JSON.name, I should be able to get Joe. And then we'll add it to our spreadsheet. So let's just do spreadsheet app. And we'll basically get our active spreadsheet. Then we'll get our worksheet that I've just called test. And to that worksheet, we are going to append a row. And that should basically be an array. And since we're going to have just one column, it's just going to be one thing. So if I do body JSON.name, at that point, that should be whatever we send here. I think that's all we have to do. So I'm just going to run this doPost to make sure we give all the permissions to access the spreadsheet app. It's going to give us an error, but that's fine. There's the error. So that's fine. So now we did all the permissions. Now I'm going to just publish a new version. Now, one thing you cannot do if you're doing this, you have to publish your script. You can't use the dev version for this because we're calling it from an external application. That's probably what most people are having problem with. They probably don't realize they have to deploy this. So it's public because we're calling it from external service. Unless it's public, there's no way to access this. So again, the rest is the same. I'm going to update this. That should give us this, which should be, I believe, the same link. But if it's not, I guess we'll find out. And AKF seems to be the same. All right. So now let's try to create something to write something to that spreadsheet. Now, I'm not sure if we have to do a content type or not, but I guess we'll find out in a second. So what I'll do, I'll just basically copy this. rename this function. We'll call it button2. And we have to create that button2. So I'm just going to go here and copy. Save this. So that's our button2 to add a row. Now we need to call that button2 and call this function right here. Now we're going to call the same URL, but this time we are going to actually do a post request. So that means we're not going to be able to do what we're doing in here. So I'm going to remove all of that for now. And we should be able to pass the URL. And I think the fetch also has the object. I may have to look up their docs again. Let me open the docs. See, when you start working with a bunch of things, it's impossible to remember any of this. So you just have to check the docs all the time. Or maybe I'm just stupid and I can't remember stuff. Who knows? It's one or the other. But anyways, so that's, see, this. So we call the URL and this is the object. So the method post, mode, blah, 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 blah. I'm just going to copy all of this because that's going to help me. Right from Mozilla documentation and go here and paste it right in here as an object. So this time we're doing a post request to the same URL. Mode. Do we have to do that? I don't know. So let's just ignore this. Cache, I guess no cache. Remove this. Headers, application JSON. We'll keep that. Redirect. I think we have to do follow because AppScripts does that weird thing where it kind of changes the URL on you, but we'll see. Again, I'm going to try to not do that. And the body we're sending to that. So we need to send the data. So right now I'm just going to create an object and we'll just make it, the name is Olivia, something like this. I think I'm going to take this and try and see what happens. So I'm going to take my HTML and open the live server. By the way, this go live, that's not by default available in VS Code. So you would have to install this extension live server. So if you go under this extensions and search for live server, see, that's the one that shows up. For me, it's already installed, so I don't have the install button. But if you do, you're going to click install. You may have to refresh or reopen VS Code. But once you do that, you should have this button. Or you could right click and do open live server. It's kind of the same thing. So you have to do this on HTML, not JavaScript. So I'm going to go live and click on add row. So before I check my console, let's go and check the spreadsheet. Okay, so that's not good. So let's go check the console and see what we get as a response. Request was blocked. Okay, so the reading was okay so far, but this was not. Okay, so let's go back and change a couple of things. Let me close this. Okay, so let's change the mode for this first. Let's actually just enable that and see what happens. And save and go back and reload this. Let's click add row. Same thing. Credentials. Let's try to do emit. So let's actually change this to no course option and try this again. Let me do the HTML file. I'm going to click add row. Let's see what errors we got this time. No errors. Let's go check our spreadsheet. Wow, there it is. Olivia is in here. That's nice. Look at that. Now let's try this again. Add row. That should add another Olivia. We got it. Okay, now I'm curious how much of this I didn't have to do. Do I have to do credentials? So let's save that, go back and try to, we got 2 Olivias now. Click add row. No errors this time too. 3 Oliviers, so that works too. Okay, so we don't have to do this. We just have to make sure the mode is no course. The method is post, obviously. The cache, it's up to you, but I'm gonna do no cache. And the header should be application JSON. I'm not sure if that's required. We're gonna keep it anyways, but just for testing purposes, I wanna try this without that to see what happens. So I'm gonna save this, go back. Let me delete these. Click add row. Works anyways. So not required, but we're gonna keep that part. This I'm gonna get rid of. And that's pretty much all we have to do. So if we go and change this to John, save this, we should be able to now click add row and add John to our spreadsheet. Okay, so now finally, let me also put this in this GitHub and make sure this whole thing works. So I'll just keep this simple, copy paste. This is the HTML, the same for JavaScript. And now if I test this and it works, we should be in a good shape. I think I closed that page, so I have to go find it. Oh, so now it works. I don't have to do index.html anymore. So apparently it just takes a little bit of time. So if I click on click me, that should load cool. If I click on, let's delete this first. If I go back, if I click on add row, we got John. If I click on it again, we're gonna get 2 Johns. Good, so this works. So we proved that this works from different resources, which is what I was worried about. So we figured out how to call it to get the data using fetch API. We also have this to post the data, and it works just fine. So with this, in a separate video, I guess, we'll do something that will get a better JSON response from the spreadsheet, working with some more realistic data, and try to make something nice out of it. But for this video, that should do it. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.